Australia is a big country. Australia is also a land shaped by wildfire in many places. Join me as we travel around this great country, meeting people and talking with them, and together their stories will come together and help us better explain Australia's complex relationships with wildfire. Welcome to Talking Wildfire Australia, my friends. Hi and welcome. This is my friend Jamie. We met in Tasmania in 2019. Jamie lives in the Kangaroo Valley just south of Sydney, which is a really beautiful place. Jamie, can you tell us about the valley where you come from and about what happened here in 2019?
Yeah, sure. We love the valley. It's a beautiful part of the world. It's probably about 180 k's south of Sydney. It's a closed valley, one of 7 closed valleys in the world. So we have an open end to the west and a closed end to the east and to the north. The water for the Kangaroo River comes in basically via a couple of waterfalls. It's really beautiful, really a lot of natural beauty, a lot of escarpments. So it's that mesa sort of style, bit sort of like the west of the United States, but we have a few more trees.
So it drops off kind of like
really like 100, 200 metre escarpments. Particularly beautiful. It's where the last edge or the very end of the Sydney sandstone mesa, which basically starts in Gosford, just north of Sydney, and comes down. We're literally the last outpost of Sydney sandstone. Lots of big coastal trees. Sydney bluegum, eucalypt, turpentine. Yeah, some really, really big trees. Not like out west. They have a lot of smaller trees out west, but we have a lot of dense forest.
And that's surrounding you.
Coming
down from Sydney.
Yeah. We've got a lot of dairy farms, a lot of urban interface here, a lot of tourism, so a lot of houses that people want to come down and live in the bush because it's a beautiful part of the world. Very lucky to live here. We had some fires come through in the 2019-2020 fire season, which were experienced pretty horrific all the way up down the east coast of Australia, from the Queensland all the way down to Victoria. It was a very, very, very busy time. We had some very hot weather during that December period, and we had a fire that started down near Bateman's Bay. We call it the Currawong Fire.
So that's to the south.
Yeah,
right?
To the south. It's probably at least 200 k's from where we are now. It's, a few hours drive. Mm-hmm. That fire started in late November, early December, and burnt for a long time. And it was a very busy time for a lot of agencies. On the very early January, it impacted us here. Fire came in from the west, and there was a southerly change. It was a challenging period. We had a lot of brigade members who put their time together and were fighting the fire from the inset down in Bateman's Bay. We'd go down and do basically a deployment. The deployments got shorter and shorter because we didn't have as far to travel because it was getting closer and closer to us. The fire was particularly angry because of the drought that we'd had beforehand. So we'd had probably 4 years of drought previous to this, and so it was just sort of like a perfect storm that was happening.
So the fire was moving across this thick forest coming up.
Yeah, a lot of it was thick forest. A lot of it was pretty scrubby land. We have a lot of national park here, so the national park guys have a lot of area that they're responsible for. The Moreton National Park, which is one of the biggest national parks in New South Wales. It's a very, very big area. The Shoalhaven, which is where it's the council area that we live in, which is on the coast. I think it's about 70 or 80% bush. So we have a lot of bush, and we have a fair bit of urban interface as well. But a lot of, we call it bush. You might call it forest or whatever. With a lot of trees and a lot of different scrub, a lot of different topography. Very hilly. A lot of big valleys, a lot of big gorges. We have some beautiful Shoalhaven Gorge out to the west of us. Between us and Goulburn, some really beautiful country.
So that fire moved across that area and started getting closer and closer, and what happened?
Yeah, we were sort of preparing for it. There were a lot of brigade members who put in a lot of time and effort. A lot of firefighters from other areas were coming and helping us as well. We prepared, and we really did a lot of hard work and put a lot of hard work into educating and communicating with the community. A lot of people moved away or went away for during that period because they weren't confident in their either firefighting abilities or their residences. So, and that was a really good thing. We had no fatalities and no injuries pretty much. For the fire impacting us. We lost a lot of structures, probably between 60 and 70 structures were lost. Homes, garages, sheds, but we had no fatalities, which was pretty amazing due to a lot of hard work from a lot of people.
When the event came here, how long did it last?
The fire impacted here on the 4th of January. It was a really hot day. I think it was 49 degrees. It was really hot day. We had a very strong wind from the northwest, pushing the fire into the valley from the west, and then we had a southerly change. But it hit probably at about 7:30 at night here. A lot of people had been fighting fires all day, and we did too, myself being one of them. I sort of hit the wall at about 10 o'clock at night and had to go and try and get some sleep, which wasn't very successful. But a lot of people doing a lot of work. We had trucks coming in. I think we had probably about 40, maybe 50 trucks here that night from other deployments, from Fire and Rescue New South Wales, from other RFS units from Wollongong, from Sydney, from pretty much everywhere. Yeah, a lot of people. I was directing traffic in this very room. Yeah, it was a pretty chaotic time, and again, trying to manage that and trying to manage information coming in and information going out was a pretty tricky time.
Jamie, to talk fire weather for a second, a lot of people don't know what a southerly is.
Okay.
And so when it hit here, it was about the same time as the southerly came through.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
So the wind was running from a northwest most of the day, pushing the fire and heating the fire. But then we had this thing called a southerly change, which is a change in the wind direction, which pushed the fire from running towards from the northwest, basically running to the north, which increases the front of the fire, and the winds that came through it were between 100 and 120 kilometres an hour. So it really pushed that fire.
And it drove it.
Yeah, it drove it. Yeah. And if this was a recurring event, this wasn't the first time that this had happened. This had happened on 4 or 5 other occasions. New Year's Eve, it hit a number of other areas in the Shoalhaven. But specific to here, it hit here at about 7:30 at night, which was earlier than anticipated. We were getting weather reports from on a very regular basis. Every half hour we were getting weather updates. So it was, it impacted a lot of people in this area. It's had a bit of a knock-on effect, and afterwards it impacted a lot of firefighters as well. We spent a lot of time fighting fires, and we were almost pretty exhausted.
I bet. Is there anything you learned from that event that you can share?
Yeah, communication and talking to each other. I think every time we go to an incident, and this one being a rather large incident, we have a debrief, or we call it an after-action review, which is incredibly important to talk about and let everyone have their say about the incident, what they experienced, what they thought was a negative, what they thought was a positive, what we can do better next time. It's never good to dwell on the negative. That's always something that's not healthy. We like to dwell on the positive, and if there is going to be a negative aspect, it's okay. What can we do better next time? What necessarily what we did wrong, but what can we do better next time? I think that's always key, and to talk about giving everyone the opportunity to talk about their experiences. It's just, I suppose, there's a little bit of PTSD there, but it's really important for that group, particularly, to talk about it and talk amongst themselves and share that experience.
In the past, like when people came back from the wars, they didn't talk about their experiences. Why do you think it's important to talk about those experiences and get them out?
It's listening to other people and getting a perspective from other people, but actually getting other people, giving them the opportunity to, that old saying, get it off your chest. So they're not carrying that burden around, or so they don't feel as though they're carrying that burden around all by themselves. They're sharing experiences like, hey, yeah, you're going through the same thing as I'm going through, or you experienced the same thing I did. We've got common ground, or we've got common theme. We can talk. So it's probably, I don't know, burden sharing is the right word, but it's having that common interest or that common experience.
So for a health thing, that's good. So
yeah, from a mental health thing, definitely. Listen, mental health is one of the most important aspects of firefighting. You can all get very excited and get, the adrenaline's pumping when you're out of job, but at the end of the day, we're all human and we all need to rest. We all need to eat. We need to sleep. And if your work's affecting that, that can be a real problem for people.
Yeah. The fire event, from what I understand, was really unique within the world. You guys got hit by a very intense bit of fire. A lot of people will never get that in their career. But do you have anything that you could say as a bit of advice to somebody that faces such an event?
Yeah, don't be overwhelmed. It's that again, an age-old, what's the easiest way to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You can't really get overwhelmed, and you've got to share the load. There's a lot of people who are very highly trained, who are able to give you assistance. You can't do everything on your own. You've got to share that workload. We were very lucky to have a lot of firefighters here during that period. And we shared the load. We had some very experienced guys here, not only our own brigade members, but a lot of guys coming in from out of area, fire and rescue guys. They're trained professionals. We're all got a professional attitude, but you've just got to share. We've got to share that load, and also looking after yourself. You've got to, we have a 12-hour shift, but then at the end of 12 hours, you've got to clock off. You've got to go and have some rest. You've got to have some food. You've got to go to rest, because particularly if you want to get up the next day or the next shift and stand up. We stood up the crews during that fire period every day for, I'm going to say, nearly 2 months. That's a big, and it's not just one crew. We've got 3 appliances. We had three appliances out almost every day. That takes a toll on it. So it's about, again, crew management.
It's been a couple of years now since the event happened. Have you seen any kind of differences in the environment, or what's actually going on out there? What have you seen?
Yeah, because we've got so much bush and there's a lot of urban interface where we live. It's beautiful country, and it was hit pretty hard by the fire, but it's amazing the amount of regrowth that's happening. It's a bit of a monoculture. It's still at the moment. There's still the understory is taking over because of the temperature and the flame height. It was a crowning fire. So it's run through the big trees, and a lot of the big trees have been really, really damaged, and so we've lost that canopy. So then that canopy then opens up for the understory to grow. So we've got wattles and acacias and things that are growing, but it's amazing the amount of regrowth. I mean, the Australian environment is a eucalypt dominant environment, so it's almost built for fire. It's regenerating. It'll take a few more years to come back to what it was, probably 10 or 20 years. Let's hope we don't have another fire like that. But yeah, the regrowth's pretty amazing.
Jimmy, for the people that are out there that don't understand what a canopy fire is,
Okay.
how can you describe that and what the aftermath was like?
Okay.
What did you see?
Basically, we have like rungs of the ladder. I'll call it a ladder. And so we'll have, so say it's a ladder. You've got 5 rungs to get to the top. You might have your ground fire, which is the actual ground is a light. So you'll get things like a peat. That's like a peat fire. Then you'll get like a surface fire, which is the stuff that's growing on the ground. And then you'll get a mid-canopy fire, which is growing halfway up the trees and it's burning a lot of the understory. And then you get a crowning fire, which is the fire that's actually jumping through the tops of the trees. For that to happen, there needs to be a lot of subfloor and a lot of ground fuel load, but also needs usually pretty high winds. So with a crowning fire, there's a lot of fuel load, very high. So I'm talking during that fire, we were witnessing sort of 30, 40, 50 metre flame heights. It's a serious
So
fire.
basically the fire on the ground lifts up, takes the canopy, and then the gases inside the canopy are burning, so as the flame lengths are way above that. So you get a fire that then consumes a lot of the forest except for the timber itself.
Even consuming the timber itself, not immediately, obviously, but yeah, we'll run very fast, very, very quickly, and consume pretty much everything in its wake.
Wow, so there's a lot of devastation.
Yeah, a lot of devastation.
Yeah, and that is coming back now.
Yeah, we had some pockets where there was some backburning done previously, and that's come back. The fire wasn't as intense through there. It did burn through pockets, but wasn't as intense, and that's coming back a little bit better than the other areas. But yeah, a lot of the species have really been hit really, really hard.
Well, Jimmy, thanks a lot for talking with us about this, and you have a wealth of experience here in Australia.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. We're doing this for all of you. If you like what we're doing, please give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment below. See you next time.